Welcome to my basement, everybody. I have a very special guest on the show today. It's the first time we are sitting down together and having a conversation. Brian Tong, you know him as a tech reporter and a man about town. You've seen him in a bunch of different things, but he's got his own channel, and he's been covering a lot of the Apple world, top to bottom. And of course, we're going to talk about all of the new iPhone drops and announcements that have come out this week from Apple. Everybody, please welcome Brian Tong to Vic's Basement. How you doing, buddy?
Woo, the basement is filled with toys, so I feel like I belong here, Vic. I feel like I'm here. Okay.
It's a safe space for nerds here. This is what this is.
Okay, this is a silly question because we know each other. It's called Vic's Basement, but you still go by Victor, but you're calling it Vic's Basement, right? Or am I supposed to call you Vic now?
Vic is fine. I'm good with Vic or Victor. And the funny thing about this basement, which is literally where I shoot everything now, is that it was a tongue-in-cheek name for a podcast that we launched when we were, running our 2 daily shows. We also did a podcast on the side, and it was sort of an homage to this place. I didn't know I would end up in the basement 24/7 making I did not know that. And what a world this has been, man, this year. Unbelievable.
It's absolutely wild. But, first of all, thanks so much for having me. We have known each other for years. We've run into each other at E3s. And I thought what was really cool is you've always been just like a gracious, really generous and cool guy. And that's not common when you meet someone that through these ways. And so I think it was kind of like an instant connection that we were like, oh, okay, this is good people. And so I think that I wanted to say that off the top because otherwise we wouldn't be doing this interview right now. I'd be like, some people are different, and I wouldn't want to do this if they were different like that.
It's such a weird. Thank you. That's very nice. It's such a weird thing for me to hear that people carry an attitude around, having the unbelievable opportunity to, be a point person around this conversation or to have any kind of platform at all. And it just poisons them. I mean, I've certainly seen that for sure, but I don't know. I've always thought of this as like you put out what you want to get and receive, and I've had a lot of great things happen in my life. And I think a large part of that has just been trying to be a good person, as best you can. And it shouldn't be an effort, I think people forget how to, just be thankful for what they have, and we're in the season of Thanksgiving. So there's a, for both Canada and for America. So there's the message from the show today. There it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you are a mega talent. I noticed you on CNET, and I thought it was an odd fit because CNET felt very corporate to me, but there you were with all your attitude and your personality, and I always thought, man, this guy is just popping. And I think you had a show called Tap That App. Did you?
Yeah, they let me do that. I mean, I would say I was, you're right. I was a disruptor in the culture there, and I had a great 10 years, and was fortunate that they took a chance on me to give me that platform. And at the same time, there's obviously restrictions when you work with a large corporate company that has a certain idea of how they want to be presented. And the thing is, when you mention this is before YouTube was YouTube, right? So I was lucky to be able to get connected with CNET and be able to just have fun and live a dream to talk about tech, video games, geek culture, and play in this space. I mean, like you said, we should be thankful. I'm so thankful to be able to do this even today, being independent on my own. Man, that's wild, right? You can't ask for anything more. So that's why, you keep that right perspective on. But being at CNET and kind of being able to develop ideas that were kind of out of their pocket. I mean, it served me well, but it was I told them
they needed it though.
I agree. I mean, when I approached them, I saw what they were, and I said, hey, I can kind of mix it up a little for you. And it was never about me. That's the thing. This is just who I am. So I just, I was thankful to be able to kind of develop and play in that space. And that's really basically how you saw me. And then you came up to me at E3, was like, hey, Brian Tong. And I was like, oh, whoa.
Dude, I mean, I'm a producer as well, right? Like, I'm a host, and I get to communicate with lots of different people. But I'm always, looking out for awesome talent. And you were fantastic. And I was certainly thinking,
thanks, man,
maybe there is going to be a road where we get to collaborate on some stuff. But this is the era of the independent creator now.
It is.
And so this is the time for people to collaborate on things like this. But everybody's kind of making their own way and making their own business. And when did you go independent with Brian Tong on YouTube?
It's now been 2 years and maybe I believe 3 or 4 months. And let me tell you, it's scary. It was not, I was definitely not net positive on year one.
Yeah.
It creeped up to year two. I mean, look, the funny thing about YouTube is it's extremely hard to make a living off of YouTube. I think you might argue there might be only 1% or 2% of YouTubers that can truly make a living just off of YouTube. It's all about making great content, having people engage with that content, and hopefully they engage with you in other ways on other platforms, and kind of building something that companies see and want to work with you. And it's not, you can have 1 million subscribers, you're still not making a living off of YouTube. It's just a fact, right? And things have changed in that dynamic. So I've been doing it for 2 years and 4 months, and it's been a ride like no other. I think I definitely understand. I always respected the YouTube hustle. Once you're in it, then you really understand. And my respect for these people have gone up 10x. I've told it to them when, I've seen them. They're like, the tech world with YouTube has welcomed me with open arms, which I wasn't sure, because I came from this corporation, was able to kind of build some level of platform, but
totally
they treat you as equals. And I think that's really unique, where it's, you might have a few people that kind of have that edge, but I felt like the tech community is very welcoming and opening and understanding. Like, no one should go to one single person for their perspective. You've got always like gaming. You've got to go to maybe 5 different people, just kind of get a sense. It's dangerous to just be stuck on what one person says.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 sides to that. You should get to know the people that you are kind of following and consuming, and hearing their opinions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But yes, you should get multiple opinions, and that's honestly, I've talked about this quite a bit on my podcasts and my programming, and that's what I really miss about being able to make the television shows, is that I built that community within the shows, and we had lots of different opinions within our content, and it's just not that time right now. We're not quite in, like, everybody has a platform and an ability to get it out there, and traditional media and deep pockets media just isn't investing in that kind of discussion, right? That's the absence that we have, whether it's tech or games or movies or whatever. We are missing that. So that's also the opportunity, but it's also the risk. There's a bunch of them, but we had this tremendous luxury for 20 years to kind of just keep growing and growing and adding people, and I miss that, and I miss I miss this kind of regular kind of communication and dissection of all of these things that happen at bullet speed. It's it's super fun.
Yeah, I think that for you asked me about being a creator and going independent. I mean, how was that journey for you too? You've been doing it for a while now, but
I've always been independent,
because we part of it is working hard, doing what we love. No one has to know, like, if it's hard for us, right? That they don't care, quite honestly. Yeah. I mean, some do, but it's not up for us to be like, this is really hard. No, it's just make great stuff and have them keep on coming back. I mean, how was that for you?
Well, it was an obsession, I was going to turn 30. I was 27 looking at 30. And I wanted to do something that, with my life, I wanted to feel like I wasn't just waiting for a break. I was an actor at that point, and I was getting some work. But I really had an insight into, like, I'm trusting someone to discover me and give me a gig. And I want to flip that around. I want to flip that switch. Like, well, what can I create myself? And so it was Electric Playground that I settled on, and it was a hustle. But I learned relatively early that it takes so much drive and passion from the creator of something, and that's the X factor. That's what actually gets something made. Like, you're in the beginning stages of actually building something when you vocalize it, and when you can kind of memorialize it with the treatment of like 2 or 3 pages that you can show somebody and they understand it. You're on the way. The next step is like the drive to get it done, and then you got to hire people or work with people and collaborate and help to steer a ship in a direction, and then the constant banging of the drum to try to get people to pay attention too. It never doesn't cease to be effort and work, but the other side of it is just that gratitude and that awareness. In our first season of television, I made $13,000 that year. You know, I made $1,000 an episode. That's all the money that I made and I was the producer and the creator and the host of the show.
Yeah, you're doing so much, right?
Yeah, and it was on TV, you know, and we were national, and you know, and I still felt like the luckiest person on earth. I remember walking home from where our office was downtown, and I walked across a bridge to go home, and I was walking across a bridge looking at my city, and I went, damn, I made a dream come true. I'm on television with a show about the video game industry, and this is what I wanted to do. I'm not making any damn money, but holy crap, you know, I'm doing it, you know, and that's always stuck with me. And I'm sure that is, you know, that come to Jesus moment that you probably had when you left, and you had this corporation's giving you a check every couple of weeks, and then they weren't, but you were probably like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you had that moment like, I would do this for nothing, and I love doing it, and I've got some people watching it, right?
You know, you talk about drive and passion. To be in this creator space, you've got to love what you do. Now, there's some rare people that can do this, not care about the content, make that money, and just work like a machine. You've got to love this to do it, because there's so many emotional challenges that you face that no one can ever understand. You might be feeling one good day. You might be feeling good one day, great one day. Maybe you put out a video that you thought would do great, and it's just absolutely bombing, and you don't know why, and you feel like crap. You have to love this to and almost like trust the process, right? You got to trust the process. And when you talk about that moment where I was just like, there were multiple come to Jesus moments, man, because you know, it's scary when you're getting zero cent, not a penny, not even a penny. And it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like I was making enough money where I'm sitting on this treasure trove of money. You know, I put in my head, I'm like, I'm going to give this 3 years, give it my all, and we'll see what happens from there, because, you know, we're lucky to do what we do. If that changes, then I have to pivot. Ultimately, whatever I end up doing, whether it's creating content or not, I'm going to make sure it's something that I care about and I love, right? I think that's really important, right? Yeah. And also not to let your job define you. So for me, being involved in media, covering tech, typically covering Apple and stuff, just because I do that for a living and it is part of my DNA, I still don't want that job to define who I am as a person. I think sometimes people can get it's hard to separate that when in this creator world, it's pretty much integrated in our life 24/7 now. But YouTube kind of works like that too. I mean, I've seen comments about Electric Playground, because like I'm still covering movies and TV shows and tech, and I mean, I'm talking about Apple stuff this week, but a lot of people just want me to focus on, you know, the latest PlayStation or the latest, and I love all of that stuff, but I think what keeps me sane is I can kind of talk about a bunch of different things. I think that's super important. I think that's also true for you, right? I mean, you were on the comic book show, you were on DC Daily, right? DC. You know, I talk about this all the time. Your audience might want things. I sometimes put out things just to test to see if my audience will resonate with it or not, that I care about. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but for sanity purposes, like, sure, I could feed Apple stuff does extremely well on YouTube. And luckily that happens to be why people follow me, but I would go crazy if I talked about Apple all day. I love Samsung stuff. I love LG stuff. I love so many other things. So I don't want to be, quite honestly, right, when you're at a company, you kind of have a pocket they put you in. Like, I love and care about tech, so I deliberately choose to cover whatever I want, whether or not that serves the algorithm right or not, because I'm my boss. And so quite honestly, I'll tell you about this. If let's say I have a week that is strong performing, I'll be like, okay, next week, because this week did stronger than normal, I'm willing to take the hit to do something that I love a little more, something different, just to put up on my channel, because it makes me feel good. Yeah. Right? Has nothing to do with monetary value at all.
Brian, that's so important, man. And honestly, that was why our shows lasted on television as long as they did, and why they resonate now. You know, when people watch old EP or old reviews on the run, it was all from the heart. I mean, we knew that there was, you know, some stuff that we needed to cover, and we had a routine around big releases and all that stuff. But we also worked our butts off to just build something that felt super authentic, and I learned a lot through that, you know. And then when we went daily with the shows, it was it gave us a broader scope on all kinds of different things to cover. But again, it was all from most of it was from the heart. There was a lot of stuff where it was just straight up information. This is being released today. This is being released
And you've
today.
got to do that. You've got to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, the type of coverage you do demands it.
But nobody remembers that. You know, people remember, and this is the thing, right? Like, this is what I learned too. It's like the products are amazing for a little while. What's really amazing are the people that made those products and the stories behind what those products are capable of. You know, like, I think it's going to be, we haven't quite hit that crescendo with Apple shot movies and TV shows yet, but there will be some excellent ones soon. And those will be remembered more than the latest iPhones are, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, people are just going to, and they're not going to put a number on what phone that filmmaker used or whatever that creator used to build that. They're just going to say that was shot on an iPhone, which is good for Apple, but it's that human story and I think there's going to be several of them, especially with the new advancements that they keep adding, and this year's just ridiculous, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, I think people are more important than honestly the products that they end up manufacturing. I think the human impetus and that creative spirit and that spark it's so valuable. It's so important, you know? Like, you know, I think you are more than your YouTube channel, my friend, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. You are more than anything you've done. Really.
That's true.
Right? I mean, really, you know?
Yeah.
This is an interesting perspective that I think, I'm going to say it, older heads like you and me can maybe appreciate and understand more, because I would say there's a generation that is all about the hustle and it's all about the grind. And we've lost this basically this kind of take a step back. There's a human element to some of this stuff. I think, you know, maybe in society things have changed a little bit where sometimes we forget it. There's people that definitely want to remind us of that, and I think it's great that you brought it up. But there's human elements behind all the stuff that's going on. I feel like typically whatever videos that you and I can grind out and put out, sometimes we're more hyped about some more than others depending on how we feel that day. But I think what's interesting is that typically when you say, what do people remember? They don't remember the iPhone review I did. They remember the stupid, wacky skit I did that lasted 10 seconds.
Or that music video that you shot.
Or music video that I did, because they felt that, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can go get something for information. You can go get something to make a human connection or an emotional connection. That emotional connection will always mean more than any review I did. And I always find that amazing that, you know, if someone says hi to me, they don't go like, I really love that first look you did on the iPhone. They're going to be like, dude, iPhone 11, you know, what is it? Old Town Road, your iPhone 11 music, that was crazy. Like, that's what they care about. And so those may not get you monetary value, but those get value in a completely different way that is actually crucial for you to continue to be able to connect and build this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and spiritually, it's uplifting. You know, like inside of you, it just feels great. I mean, I'm still figuring out what I'm doing with YouTube. You know, like everybody wants me to just post my old episodes, and everybody's got a different ask of it. And so this year, I've done a couple of things. I restarted this podcast, which it just felt appropriate. We're all stuck inside, and Zoom is our friend. This is not paid for by Zoom, by the way. I also did this thing called side-scrolling superheroes, which is just all like I have all of these classic games, and I've thought well, one day we'll get back to them. And I love superhero video games, and so I just did this whole thing on playing side-scrolling video games and talking about them, and it's so fun, you know. And it was really, it's all fun, but like these just felt very personal to me. Both of these new pieces of content that I've been putting out there. And you're right, man. Like, it's so valuable to just build something that just feels like just a piece of you and put that out there.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, when I make those music videos, and they take a lot of work, I feel like I'm in high school again, basically goofing around behind a computer, just trying to come up with something stupid and quirky. And when you put it out there, you're just like, damn, that was awesome. I don't even care about the views. I go like, hey, if I like my music videos, I'm like, if I can get this many X of views, which is significantly lower than any video I put out, I'm like, okay, at least I'll be happy. And you know, it typically does a little better, but it doesn't blow things out of the water. But I don't care. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, that's how I keep my sanity doing this 24/7, you know, throughout the year.
How much has this year changed for you? Like, were you going to all kinds of events and things? Were you, hustling all around the Bay Area? Because you're based in San Francisco, right?
So I was based in San Francisco, but I actually moved to LA 3 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I moved to LA 3 years ago because my girlfriend's down here. We had been long distance for a long time. Basically,
Mm.
there's a point in time where you can't do long distance anymore. So for all you
No.
long distance lovers out there, it's it's awesome. It's also really difficult. You better figure out eventually you're going to need to end up in the same place if it's going to work. You can
Yeah.
only do it for so long. So, you know, I came to LA here. I was still able to work for the other company for a while, but then I think part of it being distant from the operations, they're like, maybe they didn't want to do it. That's fine because once I went independent, I actually unintentionally set myself up to be prepared for this current coronavirus situation. Like, I feel extremely lucky and fortunate that I can do my work from arguably a single room, maybe another room if I have to shoot some B-roll. You know, not everyone can say that, so I feel really lucky. That's why I just don't take any of this stuff for granted, right? You just can't. But for me, it hasn't really changed much. It's in a weird way kind of made me more productive because there's nothing else to do. You know,
Right.
in LA.
Have you
go
also
ahead.
discovered this too? Because I have this year is because it was weird at first, right? Because there was I don't know if you felt this, but a little bit of guilt that you get to just do what you do,
I'm like
and
that,
and you're just like, well, the world's on fire, but I'm okay. I'm playing video games and talking about it. I'm looking at tech, and I felt that, and it was strange at first, but then you hear the feedback that people are looking forward to escaping. They might have a frontline job, or they might have to go to a physical place, and everybody's filled with anxiety, and then they can come back and watch your content. And have you gotten feedback like that?
Yeah, you know, it's crazy because it makes me happy when people tell me that. And I think what's also partially like in my videos, like even if I'm talking about tech, let's say, sometimes if it calls for it, I don't do it in the beginning of my video, but at the end of my video, I'll just like completely break off. And, you know, I talked about Kobe Bryant. I talked about Chadwick Boseman. I talked about coronavirus. But just to acknowledge the audience that I'm feeling what they're feeling and not to ignore, because there's plenty of people that it's safe. It is so safe to just cover this lane of what you do and not talk about any issues outside of it that people are worried about or affected by.
Drives me crazy.
And you might turn off some people, but I think we're supposed to have honest conversations that everyone doesn't agree with, right? So when I do those things and some people get mad about it, the stick to tech thing, I don't care because I know that it helped me, and I'm hoping that it helps someone else. So, you know, maybe sometimes like you get triggered by something you see on Twitter and you put it out there because you're like, no, this is not right. And Twitter's beautiful because it goes away really fast, so people can choose to listen to it or not. When it's a video, people kind of feel a little more strongly about it. But I've always just hoped that my audience just gets the perspective that I'm coming from a grateful, thankful perspective, and more being an open mind to open dialogue about anything. And because of that, they're willing to maybe be like, okay, Brian's going to go off a little bit, but at the end of the day, I know that he's doing it because he cares. Instead of, sometimes people do it for different motives.
Yeah.
I don't. I just feel like we've got to respect people, respect each other, and just bring more humanity instead of, man, talking about an iPhone and being able to buy it today, that is a first world luxury problem.
Totally.
Right now.
Yeah.
And
or the new game consoles, 100%. Yeah.
There's people that act like nothing's happened or changed. So their audience, there's audience members that we have that don't have jobs right now, right?
I know.
So we've got to factor that in at least a little bit and consider, even if you put in a sentence about, I understand like this is a little crazy right now, or that this pricing is not going to be, this is like the fact that we're talking about this phone is not going to be as easily to purchase that it used to be because things have changed. Like, you got to acknowledge it in just even one small way.
I mean, even the fact that all of the marketing around, let's talk about the iPhones, like even the marketing around them, it's amazing. It's beautiful. but it just feels so, massively artificial in this era, this year, about everybody getting together and taking photographs. And I mean, I want to do that. I want to live in that reality, but at least they have a lot of shots where there's nobody in the frame and it's just a person, surrounded by horses or something like that out in nature. It's beautiful, but it does feel so, opposite to where we are right now. I feel not only financially and the issues that a lot of people are dealing with, but also practically, especially as we're about to enter into this new fall second wave, and everybody and I don't want to get this to be a big bummer for everybody, but we all know it's around us everywhere right now. So it seems a little weird to be marketing things that are about heavily about cameras right now, right? I mean, and what are you going to be taking pictures of?
Hey, we take pictures of the basement. We can do low light pictures in this basement.
There'll be a lot of that.
All types of things we could do.
The cameras, though, they're almost Apple cameras at this point, with some communication functionality. They're so powerful. And I'm still grappling. I have the iPhone 11 Pro Max from last year, and we've used that on shoot. It's an incredible device, and I'm still figuring out what this can do, and it's just been crushed by the 12 Pro Max. There's a lot, though. I watched your iPhone camera breakdown video, and it was excellent, and it was very descriptive, and it took us into it. But how can you quickly and easily break down the differences between all four of these different iPhones that are launching?
I mean, for your audience, I'll do my best to kind of do it really quickly. And I think I can off the top of my head, because I've been looking at that thing so long. I mean, it quite honestly took a long time to organize and make sense of it, because Apple didn't make sense of it at all.
No, I know.
Okay, let's start. I'll try and do this in, let's say, 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
But this will hopefully help the audience. All right. So we have 4 iPhone models. The good thing is that they're wide. So there's either a dual lens camera on the 12 mini and 12, and a triple lens camera on the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. Now, the good news is that of those potential 3 cameras, the wide camera, which is basically the first camera that shows up when you open up your phone, kind of that general camera, that's exactly the same on all 4 phones. The other camera that's exactly the same on all 4 phones is the ultra wide. So that's that zoomed out that gives you those great kind of epic looking shots, that perspective shot. That's also exactly the same on all 4 phones.
They didn't have the ultra wide on the 11s last year, right? Or did they?
They do. It's one of these 3. I don't know which one.
Yeah, but the
11. Well, on the 11 Pro they do. Yes.
Yeah, but not the 11s though.
Yeah, correct. Not the 11.
So this is the first year that the base iPhone, because that ultra wide is mint. It's awesome. I use it all the time on the Pro Max. So now every iPhone in this year has the ultra wide built in. That's pretty great. That's great.
So then the difference between the mini and the mini 12 mini and 12 is that they don't have the telephoto zoom in lens that gives you kind of a little more flexibility. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of like what people.
That's pretty amazing that for the 12 to be that close to because that telephoto, I don't use it that much. I use it, but I don't use it that much. I'm usually in the midpoint or the wide. So Apple's made the right choice there, and I think anybody that gets the mini or the regular 12, they're in for some like major camera upgrades.
Even better, Vic, is that whether you care about it or not, Dolby Vision HDR, this basically makes the colors pop better. It gives you truer blacks. This is going to make your video look better no matter what, whether you care or not. It's never been on a phone yet, but Dolby Vision HDR. So just think of it as like an ultra enhancement to your 4K video. So quite honestly, all the major studio movies that you see that you buy digitally or you buy on Blu-ray, which I still do because I'm a freaking videophile. When I want a great Marvel DC movie, I buy the disc so I get the best visuals. That's all Dolby Vision. So all 4 cameras shoot in Dolby Vision HDR 4K video. All 4. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Now the only difference between the 12 mini and the 12 and the 2 Pros is that Dolby Vision HDR on the, I'll call them the entry models, shoots at maximum 30 frames per second, which is fine, which is normal.
Yeah.
The higher end models shoot at 60 frames per second, up to 60 frames per second for Dolby Vision HDR.
So you could take the 12 mini, and shoot at 24 frames per second with Dolby Vision HD. You could shoot a movie on the mini, is what you're telling me.
And it will look just like a Pro Max.
Incredible.
So
that's insane.
So that's really, I'm not going to get into any more super specifics. That's the kind of at least over the top breakdown. The other small caveat here that Apple didn't really explain, and we don't know what the results are, is that the 12 Pro Max, the largest phone, 6.7 inches, and the 12 Pro Max has an actually slightly better camera. At least the wide lens is slightly better on the 12 Pro Max than it is on the 12 Pro. Now, I did mention how all these cameras have like the same wide camera, but specifically with the 12 Pro Max, they all have optical image stabilization, but this one specifically has like a system where the sensor in the camera is kind of like on a rocker, so it has it physically stabilizes in the camera versus most of the time the stabilization is done on the lens. So the actual sensor, that's only in the 12 Pro Max. The actual physical sensor,
and that's on the ultra wide angle. So if you're doing or is that across all the cameras?
It's supposed to be from what we know, it's only on the wide camera.
On the wide. Oh, the main
ultra
one.
that special specific hardware. It's called like shift sensor. That's only on the 12 Pro Max. The other benefits is that its actual sensor is 47% larger, and all that really means for geeks or nerds or people that care not, it's going to be able to bring in more light into your image. So technically, we don't know this yet though, the 12 Pro Max should be better at low light imagery. Should be slightly better, but I think these are so good, I think it's going to be really hard to tell, quite honestly.
Right. Because there's all the computational photography and they're probably building in the software to not have that much disparity between the models because they don't want that to be the story either, right? They don't want people to feel if they pay for the 12 Pro that they get burned that they didn't get the 12 Pro Max.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping, because I'm not a big screen phone guy. Like I said in my video, I didn't think it was fair. I don't like the fact that if you're calling a camera a Pro line, that you're now giving one Pro a different camera than another Pro.
True. Yeah.
Even if
that's
it's
weird.
a Max
that's
size,
a bad
I don't
apple.
care. That's a bad apple. You know that is, right? So those are the main differences. One small tweak that I did forget to mention is in the triple lens camera systems of the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max, they have the LiDAR sensor. This actually isn't going to be that big of a deal, but think of it as it's a sensor that shoots like little beams of light and can create like a physical representation for augmented reality of the world. Where it can be interesting though for photography is that it's supposed to help in detecting a person for better low light portrait mode shots. These are those.
Honestly, I think that's
shots.
Huge, man. I think that's cool.
I think that makes a difference.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I'm psyched about that, but I'm also incredibly psyched about AR gaming on the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max. Because we haven't really, we've seen some cool toys and some cool stuff, but we haven't really seen where this can go. Nintendo's got this new Mario Kart Live with the AR Mario Kart with the physical toy, which is so cool, right? And you can just feel like a drone version of that with LiDAR. I don't know. Like there's just a lot that Apple can now do. I want to talk a little bit about gaming and Apple, because every time they have one of these events, they bring somebody up, and obviously the League of Legends online game is going to be huge for them. It's not my thing. I'm not a big League player. I don't really play free-to-play stuff, but it will likely be a massive thing. But Apple Arcade launched last year. Have you dug around in that catalog, and how do you feel about Apple and their commitment to video games right now?
So it's interesting because, I did a full-on review of Apple Arcade, and I actually, for what it is and what they're trying to do, I think it's actually really good. The quality, because ultimately I feel like this was a way for Apple to A, make some money, B, showcase developers that maybe would get buried in the App Store, but 3, above all things, stop all these ads from overtaking the actual games that we're playing constantly with pop-up ads and, buy more coins. Like there's an element of that people have been used to that. But damn, how nice it is when you don't get a single one of those during any moment of gameplay. It keeps you in the game. It really does. So I think the developer, the first wave, oh my gosh, why am I so dumb? It's the game where it's like kind of the galaxy space aesthetic. You're on a skateboard with the girl. What is the name of that game? I can't remember.
Oh, that's
I'm not trying to test you.
No, that's oh my God, it's on the top of my tongue, but I it's on my head. I can't. Oh, Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Thank you. I was like Sayonara something, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that game I would arguably maybe get buried in the App Store, honestly, because on surface you look at it and you're like, oh, this is kind of like a skateboarding game. I mean, like a cool visual thing. But that thing was a trip. That was a game that I was like, all right, this is a special game. And they had enough, at least on launch. I didn't expect them to have big blockbuster games. I thought that they came out with good enough games that were compelling enough. If I had a family, we could all share these games together. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense for all things.
My daughter has put in over 100 hours on Sneaky Sasquatch.
There you go. Right to our point. Right.
Yeah.
So again, I think what they were trying to do and who they're trying to cater to, or who they're making this kind of service for, I don't think it's for everyone. If I had more time to game, because now as a creator, I just don't have as much time. I hop on, play a little Mortal Kombat for 15 minutes, then I'm out, right? That's how I play now these days.
You should review video games.
I mean, I could.
That's how I have time to play.
I know. I have there's so many things that I review that it can be hard. But I think I actually really like Apple Arcade. I know some people aren't too high on it. I think it just comes down to where you are in your life.
Honestly, I don't know why. I feel I love it. I think it is a great first step from Apple. Honestly, I think they were probably kind of backed into a corner because they probably had enough pissed off game makers out there that weren't making anything. They were making excellent things, and there were probably relationships between Apple and these devs, and they were like, we're sorry, these BS match threes keep making all the dough. Nothing makes me sadder than being up. Well, we haven't been on a plane in a long time, but being on a plane and walking down the aisle, and all of these people are like addicted to their stupid match threes on their phones. And it's like, have you guys ever heard of the Switch? If you spent $5 a month, you could be playing Apple Arcade games. There's tons of wicked games there, and people are just lost in this mindless thing. And I want to see us get to a point where we're not angered by the games we're addicted to. Like I feel like we've crossed into a threshold because of all of these ads and microtransactions and stuff. There's a lot, games I think have reached a really incredible amount of people, but then I think there's a lot of people that play them, and then they have almost reverted back to that same disgust about games that they used to have by people that didn't play them, and now there's addicted people to games that have been addicted to the wrong games, and they've all been, these cheesy nickel and dime type of experiences. So I feel like this is the right course of action, but now it's up to Apple to, make the right partnership choices and keep adding really cool content.
So I have a question for you. It's really interesting to hear your perspective on that, because obviously, I love games. You love games, but you've covered them intimately for how many, 20 plus? I don't know, 15, at least 15 years or so, right? I don't know. 25
years.
25. Yeah. Okay, see, Dizam. All right. So, your perspective is interesting and actually really valuable, and kind of like how when you've been in the quote unquote, as I say, we've been around for a long time, it offers trenches. Some insights, right? And so from what I'm kind of hearing from you is that, look, gaming is gaming. We all love gaming. But when you start getting that bottom of the barrel gaming, it cheapens what gaming is. And I'm not saying everything has to be a AAA title, but are you kind of alluding to or saying that, whether it's through curation, whether this Apple Arcade thing needed to happen, we need to kind of raise the quality, knowing that those things are going to be there. You can't ignore it. Like, they're not going away.
I think they would
bring back
go
a
away.
Different level of gaming.
Yeah, no, and I think that they would go away. I think that the bottom of the barrel can shift. This microtransaction hell that we have just kind of put up with since the iPhone and Android kind of made that our reality, and it filtered from the phone market into the console market and all that. It's junk, it's garbage, and if you look at classic games, you see that right away. Now, I'm not suggesting that the money made from these games is garbage and it hasn't been put to good use, because clearly a lot of these companies have made tons and tons of money and then they've reinvested them in other entertainment. But we've crossed over into a threshold where companies like Toys for Bob makes Crash Bandicoot 4, and one of the things that they highlight in their video is there are no microtransactions. You know, Star Wars Squadrons comes out on the face of the the crash and burn of Star Wars Battlefront 2, although that eventually made its way back. But there was a lot of fan uproar about all the microtransactional elements, and that Squadrons does away with all that. So we have crossed over. There are legal procedures happening in different territories around the world about pay-to-win scenarios and loot boxes and things like that. So there's an awareness of it. I think Apple Arcade is somewhat of an answer to it. I think we can shift our focus to more subscription-based gaming. I think Game Pass is a step in that road, the Xbox Game Pass. I think PlayStation Now is going to become an increasingly important element of what PlayStation is going to provide. And so we will still have games that are, and I don't think even these people that are like coming up with these addictive microtransaction-based, ad-based games, they're trying to make an awful game. They're trying to make a compelling enough game that people will stay with it so that they can make billions of dollars. But that's a new thing in video games. What's not new is how to make digital entertainment that really connects with people. And I think what we've got to do is shift our focus to more Netflix and Disney Plus type scenarios where there's a real value proposition on that subscription. And you're going to get a huge chunk of software. Not all of it's going to be great, but at least it won't be also gouging you. And so there will still be a bottom of the barrel, although no one's going to like try to be the bottom of the barrel. There just will be. But
I think there's some people that try, Vic. There's some people that try to be that. They don't even care. There's no shame.
I give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
But I think what the focus will be less on sort of minute by minute purchases within these interactive experiences, and that will be gauged around time. So the pot will grow because more subscribers will come on board. And I don't know who's going to be the king of the heap here. I don't know if it's going to be Game Pass. I don't know if it's going to be Apple Arcade, but the pot will grow just like Netflix. And Netflix will probably pay movie studios a certain amount of money to get some exclusive stuff, but they also probably pay a lot of deals based on minutes consumed and minutes watched, or maybe there's residuals based on that. And I think the gaming industry is going to be a lot more about that. And so suddenly the gaming content will be about finding ways to keep people compelled to stay, but not based on spending to stay, just by content to stay. And that's going to be a healthier direction for the business. Because I think what's happening now is, and I know what's happening now, I think we have a lot of customers in video games that get turned off on the whole medium because they get addicted to something and they spend $1,000 on something that just makes them angry, and then they have to go to rehab and they never play games again, And we don't want that for video games.
I know people I literally know people like that had to just get off video games because it was too addicting.
Yeah.
Whatever, and that's partially like, maybe the makeup of a person, but also, game makers know what levers to pull to make these things addicting, as just regular apps do. They know what they're doing. Even, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but on Netflix, there's a documentary. I haven't even seen the whole thing, but I saw it halfway and I was just nodding my head the whole time. It's called Social Dilemma.
I keep hearing about it.
Right. Where they basically, obviously when you're building a new platform, whether it's a game or an app or a social media network, you're trying to keep people on the screen as long as possible in your world. So what does that mean? How are you going to approach that? You're trying to make it as addictive as possible without realizing the repercussions that it's going to have, right? Because you're just thinking, I want my app to be the best. I want someone to never leave my app, right?
Right,
well,
right.
There's a cost associated with that. So I think,
We
to your
need to
point,
start gauging on. That's an excellent point, Brian. Like we as game critics and reviewers, we need to put that into the discussion around this. Are the hooks in this thing so that you are never going to want to leave? Because I don't think that's a healthy place. And especially if every company is trying to make that game, the always look at what the Avengers are struggling with right now. They're struggling with it. And the reputation is that I saw some reviewer that said they put 130 hours into the game and they were wondering.
Just a grind, right?
Yeah. And they were saying it's not worth the $60. And it's like, well, you spent 130 hours in the damn game.
It's interesting. It's interesting you bring up Avengers though, because I bought that. I haven't had as much. So me and my buddies were all like, we're gonna get into this game together, right? Yeah. And again, sometimes like it's hard because when you're a gamer, there's kind of this prime age where you have a lot of time in the world to play video games, and then as you get older, you don't have as much time to play all the games in the world that you want. It's just life. But two of my buddies, they ended up recently getting houses, and so we haven't been able to play as much. But what happened is during the beta, we were pretty freak. Like we set out a week of our life and basically played every night nonstop, knowing, and we're like, oh my god. And so then I was like, okay, I got to take a step back. I got to do work. I mean, when I put out a video, it literally feeds me, right? Yeah. And so I have that thing to stop me from getting hooked into the game. Now, if I'm 21-year-old Brian who's not working yet, or it's a summer, I'm probably getting addicted to that game pretty damn hard, right? Yeah.
And, and that's like you grew up in this era and I did too, where there were addictive games, but there were new ones coming out all the time. And you wanted to kind of try a lot of stuff,
Finish
and
the
I
game
feel
to
like
get to the next one.
Yeah. And now there's a lot of games that they don't want you to ever finish. They want you to stay there forever and ever and ever. And I still subscribe to the philosophy that that's not really healthy. It's not healthy for the individual. It's not healthy for the video game industry, And I feel like there should be a little bit more emphasis on reporting on games that aren't massive. I just saw Cliff Bleszinski tweet about The Tourist, which was an indie game that hit the Switch last year from Shinen. It's on Xbox Game Pass right now. It's a wonderful game. I think it was my favorite indie game of last year. And it was a nice, tight little... Yeah, it's really a trippy, cool, voxel-based adventure game. And there's lots of games like that. And, and I think what's going to happen and what's already happening with Game Pass, and I think is starting to happen a little bit with Apple Arcade, is people are trying a lot more stuff than they would normally if they walked into a game store or if, God forbid, they tried to actually find something on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Those things are unbelievable. They are a mess. It's totally crazy.
It's too much stuff.
Yeah. So Apple is all system on a chip now. They are completely shifting. Crazy year, but a good year for Apple, an exciting year for Apple. What's your take on all this?
Quite honestly, I think it's a great year for Apple. I think that for me, covering them for a while, there was like a pocket of maybe 3 or 4 years. It was typically, I think, around kind of the iPhone 6, 6S, 7, and then 8 when those models were coming out, where Apple just wasn't doing anything very special or interesting. And at the time, that was kind of like almost peak time around the 4, 5, 6, 7, where people were just buying iPhones like wild. And I think they got really comfortable because as an Apple user who was used to them, I'm not saying you have to be the greatest innovator and come out with an iPhone every year, because you're not. But within what they were doing, there was very little going on, not only in phones, in laptops, in tablets. They were just kind of resting on their laurels. And then, thank goodness, the Apple Watch came around. You're like, even though it wasn't that good at first, it started to show me like, okay, they're really trying to do something different. Year 3, they finally hit their stride. I think the past 2 years, Apple's kind of corrected some of the things that people who have been following them for a while cared about. For example, the Mac Pro, who didn't see an upgrade for like, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 years. They finally put out a new Mac Pro. Even if that wasn't the most popular selling machine they were going to have, it made the people that actually drove their company. Yes, it's a statement piece. It is one of the most powerful creative, I say this, creative desktop PCs out there for video production. And they put their flag in the ground and said, we're going to be back here, because they weren't for 4 or 5 years. It's things like, their god-awful butterfly keyboard, which I complained about on day one, and people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, this does not feel as good. But when people are drinking the Kool-Aid and when people are getting review units from Apple, they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 3 years later, everyone's like, I hate this keyboard. I'm like, yeah, what have I been telling you? So guess what? It took them a while, but Apple then finally basically brought back a more improved version of this keyboard with more bounce. All of a sudden, everyone's saying, I love the Apple keyboard. And it's like, they didn't have to do this, but hey, the marketing machine of Apple is real. You know, they can do something that a company's had for 2 or 3 years. All of a sudden, Apple does it because their audience, the general audience that follows Apple, is not in this minutia of Android and Apple. They're just like, give me a device that's reliable. Apple says new keyboard, everyone freaks out.
Yeah.
Everyone freaks out. So I feel like, you know, they did this. They started in the past 2 years clearly paying attention to what people were complaining about for 3 or 4 years. And I think they're really on the right track. Now you start seeing the seeds of what the iPhone planted with their A series processor. Now we've known for years that in benchmark tests, but these are always benchmarks can mean so many things, but at least let's say raw benchmark tests, that their chips were getting faster than a lot of entry-level laptops. Even some of their processors in the iPhone were matching like an entry-level MacBook, but they weren't really talking about this a lot. So there's all this buzz about when will Apple start making their own silicon? When will Apple make their A series laptop? So now we're here. This year, we expect to see them announce a laptop with their own custom design chip. Now, what is amazing about this, and people don't think about this as much. Okay, we talked about the iPhone earlier, Dolby Vision HDR content on a phone. That the only reason why that happens is because that A14 chip in there is such a freaking beast,
right?
That it can drive that. You can edit that.
Upheaval the whole production universe now. They're going to have a laptop that's going to be able to cut HDR content.
Dolby Vision HDR content on a laptop.
You can't do that anywhere right now in the world on nothing. That's crazy.
And you know, for sure, a professional that has all these calibration tools is going to be able to tweak a specific look that they want, right? No matter what, when you get to the super high-end level, you are going to
spend to get there.
You can spend to get there, right?
Yeah.
But for a consumer or a prosumer or quite honestly, a creator like myself,
right, to
have these tools, whether you care about these tools or not, you just know you're getting the best freaking camera that you can to capture Dolby Vision on a phone, and then edit it on your phone, and then play it on an Apple TV 4K on a Dolby Vision TV if you happen to have that chain. But the fact that that exists is because of that A14 chip. So now we're going to say, okay, Apple, put it in your laptop. Not only are you going to get all that raw power benefit from it, but it's going to be a lot more optimal when we're talking about battery consumption, because this is not like a huge fat chip inside. They're like at a 5 nanometer chip. It's going to be a lot more energy efficient. So maybe we see a laptop that doesn't last 10 hours, but a laptop that, for Apple at least, lasts 20 hours.
Wow.
That you
changes
put that
everything again.
That's a game changer right there. So this is why I'm extremely excited about the other thing. I'm sorry, I'm nerding out about this right now.
No, this is why we're here, man. This is it.
There's one more aspect about this that is really interesting. Okay, so imagine for all these years, Apple had to rely on Intel to deliver them their processors. They had to be on Intel's timeline. They had to basically deal with Intel delays. Some of their hardware just didn't come out because the processors that they were promised at the factory level didn't get to them in time. So look at what happened with how amazing the iPhone, this is a supercomputer in our pocket, has evolved because Apple's literally been able to control arguably, let's say 70% of everything, but all the core stuff, right? 80%, right? Yeah. The core stuff they could control. The integration that they have here with components and software. The iPhone and iPad are a demonstration of what happens when Apple has their hands in literally everything. So now let's take this to the laptop, okay? We're going to start seeing a lot of cross-play between this device, even closer than we ever had with a laptop, because they're based on the same processor.
Right.
There's going to be things that we never even thought about that I can't even think about.
I mean, why are we even going in that direction if the iPhone is that powerful at this point anyways? Samsung had the hook up your phone to a monitor and a keyboard and it became a computer. Why doesn't, maybe they will do that. Maybe the iPhone will be at par with whatever new chip that they create for a computer, and it will be the same. If
Apple does what Samsung did with DeX, Apple users, which there are a lot of, are going to get really excited, and it's going to feel like I've never done this before. It is absurd.
Which is par for the course.
It is absurd. Samsung is doing, quite honestly, Samsung and OnePlus, two of the most, and I mean Google in other ways, but Samsung and OnePlus, two of the most innovative phone companies. They throw spaghetti on the wall. They see what sticks. But because they do that, the Fold 2 is my favorite device of the year. People might think it's quirky, but when you use it, it changes your brain about how you think about a device. You actually have to use it differently, because the first week I used it, I was like, why do I need this? And then I started saying, okay, I'm going to use this in a different way. And then I'm like, oh, this device is amazing. Now, again, not everyone can afford it. It's $2,000.
I know.
But the fact that it exists and the form factor and what it can be in the future, you see it. And that's because Samsung has been like, like, let's try this, let's try that. Where Apple's like, we have the power of the ecosystem. We know our users aren't going to leave us. We're going to hook you into the ecosystem even more. That means you might get something 2 or 3 years later after Samsung. You're still going to get it, but we're going to still give you a reliable phone that you really love.
Right.
Right. Samsung doesn't have that ecosystem luxury where people are going to stay with Samsung no matter what. They can go to any Android phone and pretty much do the same things because of how Android is. Apple's really lucky they have the ecosystem, but it affords them time to do things that no other company can. Someone told me about, do you think that Apple coming out with, I can't even remember what it was, but why does it seem that Apple already always hits the right, it always has perfect timing for products? And I'm like, it's not that they have perfect timing, it's that they have the ecosystem which drives the fact that they can create this moment that now everyone sees it, now everyone uses it, and that creates the perfect timing. You know?
It's
that
like the
machine, that machine.
Yeah,
the
it's
wave, right?
like, yeah, it's that little extra gadget that you didn't know you needed, like these. We both have them in right now. You didn't know you need them. You're very skeptical. I remember seeing AirPods on people's ears on planes coming from San Francisco.
They're still ugly to me, but
yeah, but it was really ugly when it was only one dude who probably worked at Apple, and you're like, what? That's so weird. Where's the why? It's just, and now we all have them. We all walk around with them. What is? I have 2 questions for you. What's next from Apple that will shock us all, in your estimation? And what from science fiction in terms of communication have you looked to as the eventual hopeful future for us?
Wow, you're really making me think now, Vic. Okay, so let's start off what in my mind is next for the future of Apple. So people have asked me this, and sometimes it changes. But I think in the actual immediate, so everyone's talking about Apple Glass, right?
Yeah.
Augmented reality glasses. We're still a ways away for people to even be comfortable with the idea of augmented reality. It had a really high moment with Pokemon Go. I think that really displayed or explained to a general consumer like my mom what augmented reality is, right? Now, has that translated to other things? Not as much. I mean, you have Oculus with VR, and I love the product, but it's still, from a mass adoption rate, people still aren't there with the idea of wearing that. But you and I are. We're like, this is. Yeah. But even at that, right.
This might change everything, though.
Yeah, the two.
Yeah.
This
might change.
Absolutely.
It's pretty damn incredible.
That's one of those pieces where it's a transitional thing that's kind of creating more of a wave now, right? Like that specific product, right? Price point, features. Not intimidating it anymore. People are a little more comfortable with the idea of it. Gamers for sure, right? That's kind of like, and maybe this is the transitional piece, and then the 3 is really the big one, But I do agree with you with that. So I don't actually think Apple Glass is kind of the next thing. To me, it's all about the Apple Watch. I think that there will be a point in time where we won't. These are cameras, to your point, but if you can put 90% of this on this, and you want to, and I bought the cellular version specifically because there are times where I'm so around this tech stuff so much, I want to be disconnected from it, but still kind of connected, so that it serves me well. But this thing here, what Apple's done with the Apple Watch, I mean, it's one of my favorite devices of all time, but I still think it has a long ways to go to even be better. And so we're talking about miniaturizing things, not holding a big old thing in our pocket. I think this is going to be obviously probably one of their most important kind of new things in the next 3 to 5 years. It's not going to replace the iPhone, but it's where all the action and activity is from a standpoint
it
of
could
innovation.
though. That
It could.
I think that's what they want to get to with the watch, probably internally, and they probably struggle with that. Is that people could leave their house without their phone if they want to flip that switch.
I can right now.
Yeah.
I literally
which
can
is
right now.
which is kind of crazy, right?
You know.
And do you Dick Tracy it? No, I guess you got these in, so it's
No.
the same.
So here's the crazy thing. You know, I mean, I don't know how much you use it for calls or not.
Yeah.
I'll take calls on this thing, and I won't even tell them I'm on a watch, and they'll never say anything.
That's awesome.
Then when I tell them I'm on a watch, they're like, wait, and I'm not going like this. I'm just like literally like here, maybe here, right? Because you can even drive in a car and just be doing this, and they won't even know you're on a phone. Like, you know, once you don't know that because
I don't have a cellular. I have the 3, and that 6 looks pretty damn hot to me. I may upgrade.
Yeah, as a 3
to
user,
cellular.
the 6 is a great. I mean, quite honestly, the SE, as a 3 user, the SE is really nice. They're both nice. I'm not saying don't get the 6, but you probably don't need the 6. I have a 4 still. I did not upgrade to the 6. My review's done. I just have to edit it, but there wasn't enough compelling me as a 4 user to go to a 6 still, and I'm just it's getting there. But anyways, that's one thing. Like the kind of this can be the phone. It really can.
This could be the armband from Mass Effect or Pip-Boy. If Apple really wants to go that way, we could do it. But we got a ways to go.
You know how Apple is with working with others, right? They don't like to play. They don't play nice with others.
That's true.
But someone can do it and integrate it. Oh, I'd be all on board with that.
That'd be amazing, right?
So that's one thing. Here's the most unexpected thing that I bring up about Apple. I think right before our eyes, people aren't really thinking about it. Apple is becoming a major player in audio. Apple is becoming for example, AirPods. We've seen how that is transformed. Okay,
right.
Now the HomePod, not a successful commercial product, but the audio quality on the HomePod is freaking amazing. Cool. I was not going to pay $349 for it. I wasn't going to pay $299 for it, but it went on sale for $199. Best Buy does this once in a while, and I picked one up. And for the size and the sound, it beats anything that. And I've listened to a lot of stuff. There's this weird thing that I call presence of just how it sounds. It's amazing sounding, and most people that have it will say that, but it doesn't do anything else. Okay, so it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So what you have here is the other thing that I recently started using is Apple's HomeKit, not very good, not compatible with many devices. But what they're starting to do is, because of that, there's a lot of TVs out there that can use AirPlay. Right? You have Apple finally opened up the kimono and let people, LG, Sony, Roku even coming up pretty soon with an update, directly toss our content from here to a TV without an Apple TV. Okay, so then my brain starts thinking they could, if they want to, they're not going to anytime soon, they could put out their own sound bar. The HomePod already connects to an Apple TV 4K over AirPlay to be a stereo, a home theater stereo. No one's really using it. But if Apple wanted to, because it's Apple, because they have the user base, because, again, they have this huge ecosystem machine that follows them and does whatever they do, they put out a soundbar that they don't even need to release a TV like everyone was talking about 5 years ago. They don't even need to release an Apple TV 4K for someone to buy. That TV can already talk to AirPlay devices. They can just put out a ridiculously high-quality sounding soundbar or speakers, and they've got another player in the audio industry. They're working on over-the-ear noise-canceling headphones that are going to be a premium. Think of AirPods Pro, all the tech here in an over-the-ear headphone, but now these over-the-ear headphones are supposed to have tech where it doesn't matter if you put it on right side or left side, it's going to detect it with the accelerometer. You just pop them on. That is such a subtle thing that with anyone who uses over-the-ear headphones, you always look at it. That is a genius thing. You got the fact that Apple has in their ecosystem audio handoff. So when I wear AirPods, I can go from my phone. I can watch a movie on my iPod. I get a call on my phone. It switches to the audio of the phone. Come on, like
before we started this Zoom thing, my daughter's watching a show on her iPad over there, and I put these on, and I was listening to her thing. She's like, "Dad, I want to," because it auto handed off that thing. I was awesome.
So these are things that only they can do right now. That are just kind of laying in, they're laying in the grass like the lion, just kind of ready to pounce, and they could unlock these things at any time. And so that's why.
So they're taking over cameras. Like, honestly, how long will it be until both you and I are doing everything on an iPhone for our shows?
You know, the thing is that we could do it right now, quite honestly.
We could, yeah.
We really could right now. You know, I think there's always like a psychology of like, without a doubt, you can do other things with the DSLR, but it takes a lot of time and tweaking and settings. And, you know, that's not everyone wants to do that. The thing about that whole LiDAR, I know we're jumping around a lot of places, but when we talk about a camera, the thing that people aren't talking about with that LiDAR scanner in the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max,
bokeh.
Video, like legit video bokeh. Samsung has video bokeh on it. It's all right.
Yeah.
But knowing how accurate that LiDAR scanner is, I know the A14 processor can handle it. This could literally, they won't do this just because they want to make more money, but the next one, they could flip a switch, do a software update, and give us video bokeh in Dolby Vision,
right,
at a high quality.
So I'm on a Panasonic GH5, which I love.
Yeah, me too. DSLR's GH. I love it. It's a great camera.
I mean, they're workhorses, and we've put them to work. They've been in studios with us. They've been on doc shoots. They've been all everywhere, the E3, everything, and they've just handled everything like a dream. But I'll drop it super fast if the iPhone has so depth of field controls and all of this HDR and everything, and it's beautiful. And honestly, we can shoot 4K, and because we're entering 4K too. That's the other thing, right? Like in terms of, well, what you're doing and what I'm doing, but all the new consoles, everything is going to be so 4K centric. The camera I have right now is 4K, but it probably won't run as smoothly as it would, you know, through a tethered chip family of Apple products. You know, very interesting. And wonder if Apple's also working, you know, on codecs for YouTube and all the other things that we're going to need to share this content, this beautiful looking content that we're going to be making pretty soon.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Samsung and there's phones that can actually shoot 8K 24 frames per second right now, and it looks good. But I know it can look better. That's the thing. Like, so when someone told me like, hey, Samsung has 8K 24 frames per second, I'm like, I know, I've used it, but I'd take 4K Dolby Vision HDR over an 8K 24 frames per second any day. Yeah. So, right.
And how do you even see all of this material too, right? That's the...
Yeah, you have to have, that's the thing. You have to get it right. You have to have a TV, or, you know, you can enjoy them on some of these screens that can display it. Okay, I kind of been going in tons of directions. I don't know about the whole future thing, the whole future.
Yeah, well, what's sci-fi? What's sci-fi? Like, there's the Star Trek communicators that I've talked about, Mass Effect. And is there something from, you know, you as a fan, you've looked at and you went, oh my God, I hope we get that one day, or we probably will get that one day? This
is easy. I've been asking for it for maybe 2 or 3 years. I want a Dick Tracy Apple Watch. I don't even care if, you know, look, people are like, oh, your arm's going to get tired. It is, but who cares? It's a freaking Dick Tracy FaceTime video Apple Watch. Even if it's just like a 30-second moment, you know. Why don't they do that? They have the tech in here. They do. You can run the camera app on the watch. You can look at you can run the camera app off your phone on the watch. Why don't they just put a little camera in there? You know, they can. There's a few kind of design concepts that have been out there that they've even literally been exploring this, and people say that is dumb. I'm like, okay, you think it's dumb, but I guarantee you the first time you use it, you're gonna freak out. And that's part of it. I remember when Steve Jobs demoed FaceTime on the iPhone. I think it was the iPhone 3G with Johnny Ive on stage for the first time. Some people would be like, why? But then everyone freaked out about it because it looks so good, right? If the fidelity looks so good, you won't care. Like, you know, you can put your wrist down here. It's just fun. Like, right? It's that stuff for the soul. We talked about this earlier. Content that makes us feel good. Dude, and you license the Dick Tracy thing, and you have like a special Dick Tracy version of the Apple Watch. That'd be crazy, man. That would be so fun with Dick Tracy icons and everything. That'd be hilarious. Language. So, you know, it's all there. I do feel like when Steve Jobs was there was a little bit more soul to kind of some of their products and features. I'm not saying Tim Cook has done a different job. You're never going to replace Steve Jobs. Tim Cook, look, if anyone told you Steve Jobs is going to leave and then you're going to be worth $2 trillion in about 10 years or so, someone would laugh. Tim Cook has done what no one could after Steve Jobs, is still make shareholders more than happy to own Apple. So he deserves a lot of credit for that, you know? Yeah, and Johnny Ive is not there either. And that's huge. Yeah. That was the DNA of the old guard, quite honestly. Yeah. And so I think Tim Cook's mind of being a supply chain guy, we've seen it in action where he's we have 4 iPhones now instead of 1, but they're making lots of money by doing that at different levels. It's a different philosophy. It's a different Apple, but from a financial standpoint, they're more successful than ever, and you cannot dispute that. So I think he's done a really good job with who he is as a person, right? You can't compare you and me against each other. We are different people, but we can look at the results of what we've done and be like, that's awesome.
What I also really, admire and respect about what Apple's been doing. Like they've definitely pivoted this year with all of their press reveals and all that, and kept them COVID safe and showed off their beautiful headquarters. But I love that they're putting so many developers up there. So many people that definitely have to be scripted, and it's not super comfortable. But I'm okay with that. You know that they go to work every day, and those are the people, and they're letting the people talk about what they're focused on, and I think that's really awesome.
I think it comes across a lot more authentic.
I love the I think it's Lisa Jackson, the woman that's in charge of all the ecological footprint, environmental stuff. Yeah, her voice is amazing. I've noticed that in the 2 videos that I've seen her in. But I don't know. I respect all that. It's way too polished, and they're way too clenched because that's Apple. But it's still. It's cool that we get to see the faces behind all of these, transformative different gadgets and things.
And I think it's important, probably COVID kind of helped initiate that, but I think we've seen a lot of, even though it is super polished, we've seen a lot of cool nuggets. Like when you have the engineer talking about the A14 chip, I'm sorry, he's going to talk about it a lot better than Phil Schiller would ever have talked about it. I'm sorry, right? Nothing against Phil, but so there's a different authenticity. Even in the iPad Air 4 reveal, they had one of the engineers, and he just went into it, and I was watching like, this is the stuff I want to see more of, and it was great. Totally. And he wasn't the most polished person, but he, they know production. We know how production works. You can make a lot of things look good in production. Quite honestly, you can make a lot of people look like stars. So, with what they're doing and how they're scripting it, or however they're structuring the script so that they can make them as comfortable as possible, it's working. It's totally working.
Yeah, it's maybe not as raw but polished as the live shows, artificially raw, the way that they do them when they're live, and because you can tell of all the manufacturing process behind the videos, but there is still something incredibly special about this. And I'm sure that they're going to go back to their live shows once they can, and so this will just be an era of Apple. And I think we'll probably look back at these video reveals with some fondness, because I think they're doing a pretty cool job there.
I thought when I saw and they've even gotten better, honestly. If you look at the first 2, this one, they were using more dynamic lighting. Even the lighting just looked better. I was like, watching this thing, I'm like, they're getting better. They're getting better at this. And
flying into miniatures and the drone shots. It's just, wow, man. They're Hollywood productions.
And their headquarters looks freaking amazing, right? They have unbelievable visuals to kind of support. They put Lisa on a rooftop.
Yes.
Where there's solar panels over this beautiful ring and a green forest. Like, no one's going to do that. No one's going to do that. You can't.
They gave her the Tom Cruise stunt moment right there. It was awesome.
It could have been a drone. Man, it could have been a copter. We don't even know. But it was so... you're like, in environment, like back in the day, they'd show like a little chart of like how they make these elements, like, toxic free, and you're in like a black room. Now you're in a freaking, like, you see green. It's killing me. But I agree with you. I think and also it kind of gets rid of some of the moments in the keynotes that we all like roll our eyes and just like, oh, this is dumb. Yeah. This is like, we don't need this. So it's really nice. I actually like it a lot.
Yeah. What's going to be the best selling iPhone this year?
Well, I'm still going to be debating between either the iPhone SE or the iPhone 12 mini, quite honestly. These are, the iPhone SE was exactly what I thought, did exactly what I thought it would do. When I saw that thing, I'm like, this is going to be the top selling iPhone. And Apple doesn't reveal their official individual sales anymore, but all analysts said the iPhone SE was their best selling. The revenue from it indicated that it was their best selling phone of the past 2 quarters or whatnot, since it was released. So the 12 mini has the same opportunity as the iPhone SE. If I had to guess though, I'm gonna say the iPhone SE, purely because it's still an iPhone that has an A13 chip in it, and general consumers don't know, but it's $399. If you can tell someone you can be part of the Apple ecosystem for $399, think about it this way: you can get a iPhone SE, an entry level Apple Watch.
Apple Watch, yeah.
Let's give them the SE. I'm not going to give them the 3. Let's give them the SE, which is $279, $399, and then a pair of AirPods. You're talking about all those 3 things for around $800. You got to be kidding me. That is a killer package when you're talking about what the Apple ecosystem can do for someone if you're drinking that Kool-Aid, which quite honestly we're in it deep, so we understand that. But for $800 for those 3 things like that, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they got to be there at every price point. I think the Mini is a pretty enticing.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a reflection back on where iPhone has come from, and I think that there's going to be a lot of nostalgia involved in people picking that up. But I think it also, if it does very well, it might open up a category for even smaller phones going forward, which would be great. And then I guess what we'll see is the watch and the small phone finally intersect, and boom. There's your Dick Tracy right there. Right.
I'm waiting. I'm telling you, Vic, I've been calling out. I mean, I'm not, look, I don't work at Apple. These people are way smarter than I am. I'm so lucky to be able to talk and that my opinion matters because I've been covering them for so long. But yeah, that's all I've been waiting for. I say it in my video every time, and some people like say you're dumb. Some people say that's amazing. Guess what? It's going to be amazing.
I'm sure a lot of people say, who's Dick Tracy?
That's true too. That's totally true too. Oh man.
Awesome. Dude, we could talk all day. I think what I would like to do is have you back in a month or two, and we do a little regroup and a sort of discussion once all these phones are out in the wild. It sounds like November is when the really good stuff starts hitting. But you know, you're fantastic, man. And everybody that's watching this, make sure you check out Brian's YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Brian Tong. And you can follow him on Twitter. Follow this man. He's got some great insights and a lot of wisdom and lots of good stories for you.
Oh man, thanks so much, Vic. Absolutely, we're gonna do this again. I'm signing that on the bottom on that dotted line right now. I will be back, and I just honestly really appreciate this conversation because this is the first time we've ever actually talked this long. Yeah, and it was just like talking to an old friend. So
awesome. I feel the same way, brother. Thank you.
I'll be back. All right. Cool.
Thank you, and thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you soon. Until then, play forever.